Now, we've all seen the evolution of payments over the last decade, but what about the next decade? To answer that question, we have assembled an incredible panel with a truly far-sighted vision. First up on stage, I'd like to invite Lizzie Chapman, partner, Berkely Square Financial Group. Round of applause, please, for Lizzie. Gautam Aggarwal, Division President, South Asia, Mastercard. Kiran Jagannath, Head FSI and Conglomerates, India and South Asia, AWS. And Praveena Rai, MD and CEO, Multi-Commodity Exchange of India. And steering this conversation is Razorpay's Chief Product Officer, Khilan Haria. Thank you, Khilan. So over to you, Khilan, and this wonderful panel.
Good evening, folks. Welcome, esteemed panelists. I think we've got experts, veterans in the payment space here. I'm super excited to hear thoughts on, what the near-term 1 year and the next 5-7 years of payments looks like. So we're going to get right into it, maybe with the first theme. Yeah. I think the first theme maybe would love to pick brains is, we saw a lot of AI in the keynote, and the whole media is buzzed with what's happening in the world of AI, right? So if we fast forward maybe a few years, 4-5 years, and maybe we'll pick insights from Gautam first, Kiran first, right? On in the world of AI ML, what is possibly payments going to look like for us as buyers if we go a little farther, 4-5 years out?
All right. I'll start with one word, and then I'll probably give a history lesson, then come back. I would say scary. But I think it's important to see the journey of AI. If you think about it, AI models probably 5-10 years ago were used for some sort of process improvement, increasing productivity of some sort in machine-based systems, right? And then we said, okay, we can use that, plus we can probably use AI to do better user experiences, not just in fintech, but in various other ecosystems. Then from there, very industry-specific use cases were being solved for. So in payments, which is where I come from, fraud detection sort of became that use case that AI was being used for. To give you perspective, probably 10-12 years ago, card fraud was about 5.5%, 6%. That number is probably less than 1% today. And then, of course, now we're talking about Gen AI and so many things. I think all of this is cumulative, right? It's not like we move from one to the other. I think what AI will do in our lives beyond Gen AI and everything else that we're talking about, maybe make us dumber, that's a lot of people say. But I also think it'll make certain interactions of ours, digital interaction of ours, that are very conscious today to us when we do that interaction. Even when you do a biometrics-based payment, you look at your phone like straight, glasses off, if that's how you've taken the picture. You're very conscious in that interaction. I think that will go away. As an example, what we will see is you will just go about your daily life. You'll walk into a store, walk out of a store, you'll be on a device, and payments will just happen, right? It won't be something you would know, in fact, it happened. And if I take it a step forward, as AI will add to it, in many countries where you can buy, as an example, alcohol today on the website, it generally says, confirm you're 18. But there's no real check to know whether I'm 18 or not. I can still go buy alcohol. I can be 15 years old and buy alcohol, and I'm done. I think in that future world, it probably wouldn't have to ask those questions. Those are point of frictions to me today. It will figure out based on who you are, again, very smartly, and deny you the ability. To me, the future is, payments is probably the wrong way to look at it. It's commerce that will be impacted, and payments will probably become a very small part of that interaction. That's the way I look at the future of AI.
Kiran, Lizzie, any of you want to add to it?
Sure. Good evening, and Khilan, thanks for having me. I think you covered quite a lot of it. We are seeing similar trends, right? And I'll sort of bring it down into about 3 of them. The first one is what we are seeing as contextual commerce, right? So basically, this is something that our founder, Jeff Bezos, envisioned long time back, where everything happened through Alexa. I think that's going to become a reality very soon, right? Where everything is voice. Commerce is not something you go to a website or maybe even an app, right? You just speak it and behind the scenes, it happens. So actually, your question was, what is that one word that I would say? I think I would say agent, right? Uh, Everybody say future is agentic. I think the present is agentic, right? It's already happening today. So I think it's going to be very seamless. Like, just imagine, ordering food, dinner, or something through Zomato or Swiggy. You're not really going through multiple apps, multiple screens. You just say, just order something, order a pizza, and it just figures out, the agent on the back end figures out where to go, then connects seamlessly with your Razorpay APIs and finishes the payment, and you're done, and the food is there. So it's all about agents going forward is what we believe, right? And it's already happening today. The second one is, you talked about card fraud coming down. It's fantastic. But also what we are seeing is the fraud itself is becoming extremely sophisticated, right? So I think AI and ML will have a very big part to play in bringing that down, because ultimately, everything in financial services, banking, payments is all about trust, right? If you don't trust the system, very unlikely the transaction is going to go through. I think the second big focus will be around figuring out how to curtail fraud, prevent fraud, and that's going to be another area where there's going to be a lot of investment around how AI ML will play. And third one, I think you mentioned, and again, I couldn't have said it better. Amazon already does it. Like, if you go to US, there are stores where you can walk in and walk out. Nothing, you just pick up the goods and walk out, and everything is tracked through AI ML, including the payment just happens seamlessly. And that's the world, that's the future we are in. I think same thing with biometrics, right? Which is today, and I'm sorry I'm talking about Amazon services, but there's really no other alternative there. So I have to talk about the services we offer. But Amazon One, you just put your palm and the transaction is done, right? You're not taking anything out of the wallet. And actually, the previous panel, I was just listening to them, talked about DigiYatra. It's the same concept that we utilized to bring DigiYatra to life, right? Which is, how can we leverage what is already there, which is your face, your palm, and then make that transaction, whether it is walking into an airport, checking in, or commerce, like make it extremely seamless. I would say these are the three big areas where AML is going to play a very big part, and agents, they are going to transform the experience.
So I'm hearing voice, agentic, invisible, low frauds, I think all possibilities out there. Does it mean anyone in the value chain will become irrelevant, relevance will get questions, existential question for anyone you folks visualize like 4-5 years out? Like, there's networks, issuers, payments platform, like merchants. I think how is the game going to change? Maybe if any of you want to take that.
I would say one thing we're all underestimating, or maybe overestimating, is unfortunately the back-end systems of most banks are currently not in a position to handle almost everything that we've just talked about today. So I don't think it's a point of disintermediation. I think we need to see a huge evolution in the type of back-end core banking technology that we build in this country. Everybody's focused on user experience, which is fun and sexy and lovely to talk about on panels. But unless we have the physical infrastructure on the back end, I'm sorry to be a party pooper. None of that is realistic.
I think speaking of back-end systems, I'm going to come over to Praveena ma'am. In the commodity derivative space, peak loads, low latency, high reliability, all that, I think must be a norm, just given prices can fluctuate. So how is that scaling up as demands are scaling up? What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, great question, and thanks. Wonderful to be here. But I want to just take the first question, then I'll jump onto this. I loved what was spoken, and the favorite word I have is, invisible payments, and you summarized that as well. But they both spoke of commerce, and I just want to bring it into the world of financial services, because deep embedding payments into the experience, be it insurance, being it investments, and that's already been done, right? UPI and IPOs, secondary market transactions, equity, and soon we should bring something like that in the commodity derivative space. So I think that really then tightly integrates the ability to really close a transaction at the least cost possible, which then brings us to what's happening in really the space of derivatives, commodity derivatives. So with growth of volume, which is, certainly very high, I would say, close to doubling. And India is number one market globally when it comes to commodity derivative option contracts. But all of this leads to a situation where the whole ecosystem and value chain needs to have their tech at the highest level. And here, it's the kind of participants that are there across the ecosystem, institutional players, players with algorithms, retail players, all of this creating an environment where the demand on latency tends to be very high. And I think there is less focus than there needs to be to build that kind of ecosystem at scale with a lot more players coming in. So I agree with what Lizzie said. So it's less about who's going to go away, but a lot more serious tech players to be coming in here.
And for the needs you spoke about, is there anything unique to the commodity derivatives market, retail segment that you can share more light on?
Yeah, I think the commodity derivative space, of course, is a natural balance to investments in equity. It also is a good balance to inflation, good balance to currency markets. So it's a great inclusion in a asset class, in a full portfolio. And we're seeing that happening with more retail users coming in. So you have most of the large broker apps, so on and so forth. The likes of Zerodha and Angel One. So they are all, big in that space. So I think they are the front end, and they've got their tech in place. But then if you look at whatever happens behind the scenes, you need the trading platform, you need the back-end clearing interface, and then there is a whole regulatory space, which we can talk about. Should I sort of speak a little bit on the regulatory side? I think that's a...
That'll be interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So I think as, the space on regulation works both ways. And, MCX is a first-line regulator on the capital market side, much like, for example, NPCI was on payments, or Mastercard is. So any sort of exchange or network that is at the center of an industry then has to run a certain set of rules that the whole industry has to abide by. And then there is our, core regulator, be it Reserve Bank or SEBI. And this entire space, as it gets more stringent, more complex, and as the regulator is working to support more progress and innovation, with this balance of control, we've got to bring tech in the equation. So actually, what I've seen, even with where things are on the regulatory side, the use of supervisory tech and reg tech and use of AI there, going back to your AI question, is like really strong. So use of data rather than a lot of physical and manual work towards compliances, very rule-driven compliance, and use of AI modeling, analytics in the compliance world. And that's an open space, wide open when it comes to the kind of tech players needed there.
Super interesting, different perspective for sure. I want to jump to my next theme, which is credit. I mean, no conversation in payments can be complete without credit. I mean, number of credit cards issued in India is scaling, and from the time I got my first credit card, maybe 10, 12 million credit card users to now possibly 40, 50 unique cards being over 100 now, or total cards being over 100 million in India. One thing that hasn't taken off, and I would love to get both Lizzie and Gautam to share their perspective, right? Cardless credit, or BNPL as we call, whether it's in the form of credit line on UPI, BNPL, these haven't taken off to the extent the potential was there with respect to demand in the country. So what's your take on that?
Shall I start? So I had a dream many years ago. I literally shifted my life to India to come and kill the card. Okay, so we started a business called Zest Money in 2015, and our marketing tagline was "Kill the card." Hashtag kill the card. And we were 100% sure that sitting here today in 2025, nobody in this room would have a plastic card in their pocket. And just do a show of hands, who has a plastic card in their pocket? everybody, and wow, like literally everybody, and not just that there are 100 million cards in issuance. There are projected to be 200 million cards in issuance by 2028. Okay, so this is a form factor that's not just lasted 75 years. It's one of the strongest, fastest growing form factors that still exists in this country. And we are a leapfrog country. India is a country that doesn't do physical infrastructure, right? We never needed broadband. We leapt straight to Wi-Fi. We never needed desktops. We went straight to mobile internet. We don't do legacy infrastructure. But for some reason, in credit, we do. And I can say, as I'm now out of that game, it was a singular failure across the board in fintech. For all of us, we failed in driving adoption of cardless credit. And I'm not going to call it BNPL or EMI or whatever. These are actually all marketing terms for what is functionally cardless credit. And the reason why this is important, just so everybody understands, is cards are not an efficient form factor. They're extremely expensive. There are very, very high operating costs in running a card program. They're extremely frictionful at the point of sale. I'm sure we've all been in a small town, I mean, even a big town, and not had our card accepted. And they are very, very, very security risky, right? We all know what you can do with somebody's card. So it makes no sense that we're still stuck with this form factor. I still have a dream, though, and we're supposed to be talking about the future of payments. So I'm going to give somebody smart a business idea here. We will get to a point in the next few years where I will be able to open my preferred payments app, and I will be able to see all the credit that may be available to me in the world in a virtual construct, and I will be able to use that as a form factor in the way I do today with my debit. I believe it will happen, but we need innovators to push the boundaries, because the main reason it hasn't happened, and I think you will add to this, is that the business models backing digital credit are not really working today. So this is one of those sad places in fintech where money hits the road, meets the product design, and we need to come up with better business models that solve for the supply side of digital credit, not just the demand side, because we do believe it is still there. So hopefully someone in this room will do that in the next 10 years, and I won't be sitting here seeing so many hands up when I ask that question.
All right.
Some of this is changing with virtual, usage, at least on, RuPay credit card on top of UPI. So at least, yeah, I'm not carrying my
I'm
wallet or my
addicted to my
card.
RuPay. Yeah, I'm the biggest fan of RuPay. Thank you, Praveena.
Sorry, Gautam.
All right. I think, firstly, it's probably wrong to say that credit cards have been a success story in India. Credit cards, so it's to your question, why the others have failed and credit has been successful is actually a little bit of an unfounded question. I think credit cards themselves have not been successful in this country. And why do I say that? And sitting in the chair of Mastercard, why do I say that? We have 100 million cards in this country, as you said. You unpeel that, that's 50 million unique card holders. We're a country of 1.4 billion. We have over 1 billion bank accounts, and we only have 50 million unique credit card users, and they're not even all active, right? Compare it to some of the other countries which have much smaller population than us, they have 2x, 3x of that number. If I compare it to China, which is the same population as us, it has over 500 million unique credit card users in that country. So is credit cards really successful in this country? Absolutely not. The reality is credit is not culturally in our mindset. We don't like credit. And that's why credit has never taken off. I was just talking to some people, in Mastercard on how we are doing on certain growth rates. In certain geographies, credit just doesn't grow. Now, will cards be the form factor of the future? Probably not, right? Whether it'll be BNPL, I don't know. I think credit has to grow in this country if we have to grow and be a superpower the way that we want to be. If you look at any statistic, military statistic, technology statistic, there are only 3 countries that show up as the top 3. India, United States and China. Somewhere China is first, somewhere United States is first, generally India is the third. GDP will hopefully be third again, anytime soon. So the point I'm making here is the future of credit is not necessarily a card-based or not card-based. In fact, I sort of a bit disagree. I don't want to see an app where I'll have 30 offers of credit from different places that I have to buy and then have to manage those different credit lines. The reason credit cards has worked is for two reasons globally. One, of course, is backed by a solid business model, as already stated. The other reason is, it is, forget the form factor, it is one point where all my credit is being managed. I don't have to, at the end of the month, look at 30 or 40 different places where I have to go pay my EMI. Other than housing EMI or a car EMI, there's only third EMI in most countries, which is a card EMI. Or it's not even an EMI, card payment to make. I think what will happen is one or two credit forms will exist in India and the world, to be very candid, and everybody probably will have one or two favored way of managing that credit. Whether that's a credit line on UPI, whether that's on a card. When I say card, I mean a traditional Mastercard kind of a setup, or something else. Who knows? But it will be something that will go like that. I don't think the world will be, oh, let me pick one of these 30 offers and then pay for it and then manage it. I don't think people want to do that.
Got it. A quick follow-on. The 50 million unique card users, or unique credit users in the country, what do you expect that to be 5 years out?
If we were to leave to the 9-10 banks that control that space, probably 150, 200 million in the next 10 years. If the public sector banks outside of SBI and the long tail banks wake up and actually think of credit as a business outside of being a technology IT requirement, probably 400 million in the next 10 years.
Super.
If I can come
Yes,
in,
please.
sorry, it's hard to sit being an ex-banker who managed a large credit card portfolio and not say anything on it, though I'm working for a technology company now. I'm very optimistic actually about credit. Not the form factor, I completely agree. I think the form factor will become irrelevant going forward. But I do believe that credit will be a big play, especially in this country where we need to focus on consumer spending if we really want to grow the economy and grow it forward. I think one of the big things that's changing towards that is how technology is being used for driving better financial inclusion. Because Gautam talked about the top 10 banks, but if we truly are honest, I don't think we have tried to extend credit beyond the urban areas, right? It's not as easily available to many people beyond. And that sort of explains the 50 million number, right? But is there no need? I think credit, it's been debated for ages now. We do know credit does increase buying power, right? So I think we are now finding different ways to bring data, use data to improve our financial inclusion and extend those credit lines to people who till date have not had access to it. And I think that, for me, is what makes me hopeful that it will increase buying power, and increasing that consumer spend, domestic spend, very critical for India to become one of the largest economies very soon.
Thanks, Kiran. No conversation of payments can be complete without UPI, right? And I'm going to come to Praveena ma'am. You've been the builder of UPI in the previous, gig that you were driving. So both as an insider and now, as a consumer of UPI, what is the next big evolution of UPI and real-time payments in India? You again zoom out many more years out, not near future. What do you expect to change in UPI big time?
Yeah, I think UPI is some phenomenal first to its credit, right? In fact, just this week, SEBI has come out with a circular which says, device binding, will be there on broker apps, and that was really something that UPI brought in as a strong inbuilt security feature on all UPI apps. So I think some inherent parts of UPI are going to pervade, everywhere. Now coming to payments, and I would say this is like a dream where if this can actually offer, true financial freedom to the user, that is a great place to be. And financial freedom again goes back to being able to access credit, being able to get your insurance, being able to make your investments, have your savings, make your payments. And I think we have all of these happening in pockets, but still some way to go. So how UPI plays a role in this full financial ecosystem is something that I think has a lot of potential. Also, when we look at what's happening in the real retail payment space, in the micro to small, that really is where we are seeing all of this action. But as we go up the sort of value numbers, friction points still exist. So in a manner that is explainable, we need to take UPI beyond where it is today. And that's really where I think this should go.
Got it. Lizzie, coming to you, we're about maybe 300 million digital payments users in the country, somewhere around that number, 250 to 350 is what I keep hearing, right? What will unlock the next 200, 250? One
really
or two game-changing things.
Ooh, okay. So I've been doing a lot of work in the last 1 year in the philanthropy space. And I think that's really important for all of us to get outside of Bangalore once in a while and understand, the real deal and how this country works in practicality. Unfortunately, there is still a bit of a digital apartheid that's going on, and we don't see it day to day because we get excited when a chaiwala accepts UPI. But the reality is, outside of urban India, mobile devices are very few and far between in a family context. There's normally one person who controls the mobile phone within a family, and unfortunately, there's often women who don't have control and access to that device. And that means we have a real digital divide today in the way that payments is actually happening from a gendered perspective. So less than 1 in 5 UPI transactions are initiated by a woman today, and that's a shocking statistic. So the big unlock will be that we will see a much fairer enabling of female participation in digital payments, and I see a lot of work happening in that way, even from our own regulator, which is really incredible. The fact that RBI have an entire division to focus only on that problem statement gives me a lot of hope and excitement. But similarly, the way that we offer UPI needs to evolve. The reliance and the current chat on biometric authentication and all these new forms of very expensive authentication needs to evolve. So I think we need to go back to the first question and use AI for things like behavioral authentication. So using much simpler ways of authenticating who you are, such that even the most basic low-cost device can enable UPI, and we can finally get rid of OTPs.
Thank you. Maybe opening up to the audience for 1 or 2 questions. If there's any question, please raise your hand. We'll come there with a mic.
Hi, I'm Chaitra. I have a couple of questions. One is on Lizzie, I'm with you. That would be a dream day when we have no plastic cards with us. With RuPay cards, as Khilan mentioned, we can go without card. But would it come even with Mastercard and Visa, where we can have that the credit cards integrated with the UPI payments? So this is first question. Second one?
We'll keep it to one, sorry, in interest of time, if you're okay.
No worries.
I think that's a question for the regulator to answer. Right now, by the regulator, it's only allowed for RuPay.
Okay, sure.
Anyone else has a question?
So my question is, what are some of the counterintuitive insights that you have got in your experience that have changed your view of future of payments?
Yeah, so probably I can give you some perspective. I think counterintuitive is, we always get very excited about the change we are trying to create, and it seems very close. And that's what sort of intuition tells us, right? That it's so obvious, the problem needs to be solved. You know, you put it out there, you enable the market, you create the business model, and it should just happen. But it takes a lot more time. So that short can be 10 years, it's not 2. And maybe as humans, we always hope it's 2, and then we think maybe long term is 5, but actually it's 10, 15, and that tends to be a little bit of a counterintuitive experience. So that's what experience has taught me.
For me personally, if we go back like 15 years back, right, as a business operator, when India introduced 2FA, I was shocked because the conversions went down, consumers didn't know how to do OTP online. It was a era where, of course, digitization was very low in general. So I thought this is a unnecessary friction, right? I mean, if we take 15 years out, this is the single biggest reason trust in payments has been so high, because consumers feel they have full control and frauds are absolutely the lowest in the world. So at that point, it looked counterintuitive. Of course, if I come in and see it as a payment operator now, not as a business operator, it looks pretty intuitive to me.
So I'll add, maybe not a counterintuitive insight, but maybe something that I would have everybody think through. Lizzie talked about the fact that the bank infrastructure has to scale in a context of a different question. I think we need to put ourselves in perspective. This is a country that does, what, 130 billion UPI transactions a year? Praveena, is that right?
I think we lose number now. It's just moving so fast.
Right. So let's just say across all retail payments, we are about 200 billion transactions, card included. In a country of 1 billion people, I don't think any other country comes close to that kind of scale. And if at that scale, for the most part, in the last 5 years, we've not had any major issue, disruption in payments. Banks have scaled fairly fine. Yeah, you'll hear an article here and there, some bank system failed, I couldn't do UPI payment or card payment here and there will happen. But for the most part, the banking system has scaled very well. They have been able to deploy technology very well, and we have not appreciated that. We only criticized, oh, we will not be. So I am actually not worried about our ability to scale. Our banks will scale. People talked about, for those of you who are pure play technologists, people are worried about how the IP address structure was put together, that once devices come into play and every device becomes an internet device, we will run out of IP addresses. In the card space, we had the problem with bins, right? We have 16-digit bins, we'll run out of bins because now we have tokens. We figure out a way to scale that and come around that. I think banks will scale. I think there's an appreciation that we should have of this country, that the kind of scale we've reached, there is actually no other country on this planet that is anywhere close to that scale in retail payments alone. And we are doing it. And in my opinion, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. Going back to the point, we are not there in rural India. There are only 300 million UPI handles. There are only 50 million unique credit card holders. There are 900 million debit cards, but of them, half of them are not getting used because UPI is the one that is being promoted and used. So I think there is a long runway that 200 billion transactions a year would look like very soon 1 trillion transactions in this country, and we'll scale really well. So I think to me, it's not a contrarian learning, but to me, it's an appreciation that we have in India that we should always understand.
It's really well said. I just wanted to add one more thing. You missed out 24/7.
That is correct, 24/7.
Without downtime, everything needs to work every single second. No other country does that, by the way, even at far lesser volumes. So really well said.
Thank you so much. I think you allowed us to zoom into the future to see possibly what payments might look like. Invisible, low frauds, high scale, possibly 10x more credit. Possibly some folks will become irrelevant, which no one spoke about who they might be. But yeah, the interesting future in front of us. So as a payments guy, I think very excited to thank you again. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.